Preseason is upon us, and with it comes a ton of new strategies that you'll be able to use to carry in Season 13. Reading the patch notes every preseason is like reading a massive book from start to finish, so we'll make things simple for you. In this guide, we'll be covering the 5 most prominent changes to items, the jungle, and new features that you need to know. So let's not waste any time and jump right in. Also, it's worth knowing that whenever you start truly focusing on improving rather than winning, you're actually likely to start losing more often in the short term until you get some practice in and start executing more advanced concepts properly. For this reason, the preseason is easily one of the best times of the year to join Skillcapped, with our Challenger courses designed to make you a way better player so that you can start climbing stupidly fast. Why not start using them during preseason when you can learn these skills and practice with no risk? And speaking of no risk, we're the only service to offer an improvement guarantee. If you don't significantly climb while actively using Skillcapped, you can claim a refund, so why not give us a go right after this? Anyways, back to the guide, and the first order of business is to cover that mid lane meta is finally getting saved. Riot has heard the cries of every desperate battle mage out there, and has brought Rod of the Ages back as a new mythic item. It also builds out of Catalyst just like before, and the effects are basically the same, so you don't have to learn anything new. They just happen to have different icons than the old ones. What this means for you is that many of the mages that have been struggling in viability since the removal of Rod are now going to be significantly better in the meta. Champions like Twisted Fate, Kassadin, Ryze, and Aurelion Sol are all super happy to have their stat sick back, so they can actually go in and engage like they used to be able to. It's especially nice during the laning phase. Lost Chapter gives no HP, making fighting harder, whereas you can actually go in and brawl with Catalyst again. More importantly though, the mana abusers like Kassadin and Ryze should be really happy with this change, as there's now a really OP item combo that they can pop off with. Going Rod of Ages into Seraph's Embrace is going to be an incredibly powerful build path. You see, they didn't actually remove the mana into health conversion passive from Seraph's when they brought Rod back. What this means is that both Rod of Ages and Seraph's convert your mana into HP as you cast spells, resulting in a lot of combat regeneration. This item combo results in a ton of mana obviously, but also health regeneration, and even a fair amount of ability haste on top of all the AP you get. You're going to be loaded on stats, and you will pop off once you fully stack both items. For the champions that build both of these items, another way you can abuse it even further is to top it off with the Demonic Embrace right after. The passive DOT damage is nice, but more importantly, it's going to convert all that extra health you're getting into even more AP. So you're going to be insanely tanky, never run out of resources, and still deal crazy levels of damage. This build path will definitely be one of the stronger ones in the game, and you'll want to abuse these items' synergies as much as possible. This next one is for all the infinite stacking enjoyers out there, or, well, anyone that just likes stat checking their opponents with tanky builds. Riot is adding a new tank mythic item called Heartsteel. This item has 2 very OP parts to it. The first is that while you're near an enemy champion, you will mark your opponent over 3 seconds. Once ready, you can proc the mark with an auto to deal a massive chunk of damage based on your max HP. So Riot is continuing the lovely trend of tanks being unkillable and dealing insane damage on top of that. But the real kicker is actually the next passive you get. Every time you proc a mark, you get permanent health based on a percentage of how much damage you dealt. Here's the final thing to keep in mind. You can only proc the mark once per target every 30 seconds. However, there's no limit to how often you can proc it on multiple targets, so you can deal a ton of damage in teamfights while stacking even more HP at the same time. Yeah, it's as strong as you probably think it is, especially on champions that already managed to get a lot of HP like Cho'Gath or Scion. You can very quickly reach an insane amount of HP to deal even more damage with the proc. But don't think it's just a cheese item for infinite HP stackers. It's also going to be great on any champion that likes being a stat stick, such as Shyvana, Udyr, Dr. Mundo, Sejuani, etc. Now, how you're really going to abuse this is to remember that the value of anything that scales with max HP is going to be really effective when you pair it with this stacking passive. Here's a list of items that you should definitely consider prioritizing more when you buy Heartsteel. Demonic Embrace, Fimbulwinter, Sterix, Titanic Hydra, Gargoyle Stoneplate, and Sunfire Cape is now a legendary that still scales off HP, so it'll be a great combo with this as well. Not only that, but there's even some minor synergies that you can abuse in your runes with Grasp of the Undying, Triumph, and Overgrowth all scaling with max HP as well. Trust us, build Heartsteel and then combine it with some combination of those items and runes, and you're going to become a monster that is both unkillable while simultaneously one-shotting everything around you. Good stuff. Alright, enough about new builds. For our third tip, let's talk about gameplay changes. The third new thing you need to look out for in Season 13 is that Chemtech Drake is back. Now, before your PTSD triggers, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. Riot made some big changes to both the dragon and the map, so let's break those down and how you can abuse them to win more games. To begin with, the dragon buff itself will now give your team 5% tenacity and 5% heal and shielding power. You're definitely going to want to contest this dragon if you're versus a comp with a lot of crowd control, where the tenacity will play a big part. Or if you and your team are playing champions with a lot of self-healing or shielding like Aatrox, Vladimir, Ivern, etc., then you'll definitely want to pick up this buff. Now for you Enchanter players out there, if you know a Chemtech Dragon is spawning and you're confident you'll get it, then you may not want to go Shurelya's and instead pick up Moonstone as your mythic item. The 5% extra heal buff on the healing procs to it will definitely make it even more OP than it already is. As for the actual soul effect, they completely removed the revive it had before. Now when you're below 50% health, you'll just get 10% more damage and take 10% less. It may not be the flashiest of buffs now, but it's definitely something worth fighting over. But what you really need to make use of is the map changes the Chemtech Dragon brings with it. The Chemtech map enhances all the jungle plants on the rift significantly, while spawning way more of them on top of that. To begin with, the blast cones will now shoot you way farther than they did before, potentially giving you some cool outplay options. Two notable ones that you should be aware of are the following. You can dive the top tier 2 tower with this blast cone, which can potentially catch your opponents really off guard. Or you can plan a mid-tower dive from this blast cone. If you play high kill power dive heavy champions, then you'll definitely love this change. That being said, you can catch your opponents off guard with these blast cones very easily, even without any fancy moves. It'll take a while for people to get used to the range at which you can fling yourself, so make use of it to score more kills. As for the vision plants, they are enhanced in their range and spawn in a lot more areas. Not only this, but they give you a pretty nice burst of movement speed when you hit one. At a glance, you may think these plants benefit the losing team more than the winning ones. As you can see, you can kind of face check your own jungle to come out of your base and clear dangerous areas when you're behind. But they can be used to snowball your lead just as easily. Look at this lane vision plant that spawns near the tier 2 tower. Cho'Gath actually uses it to make sure the area is cleared as he split pushes. Now he knows he can confidently take this 1v1 versus Yone since he's aware no one is coming. And finally, there's the honey fruit plant. The notable difference with the Chemtech map is that they no longer slow you as you eat them. Not only that, but they actually give you momentary shields that stack as you consume them. So normally, the honey fruit is kind of clunky to use in the middle of a fight. Slowing yourself for a minor heal is typically not super worth it, but when the Chemtech map is up, you'll actually want to try to take the fights around the honey fruit, since they won't slow you down and you might be able to make use of the immediate shields that they provide. You never know when doing this might turn a fight in your favor. Moving on to number 4, for the entirety of Season 12, every jungle main should know how awful it felt to play early game focused ganking junglers in solo queue. All the jungle changes Riot are adding to make the role more accessible will actually help bridge the gap between farming and gank junglers by a significant amount. Here's how. The jungle items have now been replaced by jungle pets, as many of you have probably seen news about. The important bit about these pets is that they will automatically do AoE damage to the camp that you're currently on. This significantly bridges the clear speed between single target junglers and AoE ones in their early clears. Champions like Elise, Warwick, Lee Sin, etc. can now clear much easier thanks to their pets taking care of the little monsters in every camp, while they just focus down the big one. Not only that, but Riot has changed the Krugs to be way less annoying to kill if you don't deal AoE damage. Now the big Krug only splits once into a bunch of little golems, which your pet will easily take care of anyway. And the final change that will help you out is the Scuttle Crab spawn timer. It has gone from 3 minutes and 15 seconds to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. What these changes amount to for your clear speed is actually very convenient. On almost every single traditional jungle pick, you can now full clear and be in time for the Scuttle Crab in the river, which is a massive deal. Now you won't fall massively far behind just because your champion doesn't clear as fast as the enemy jungle. Now don't get us wrong, there are still mechanics that will benefit farming junglers. For example, to get the full benefit of your jungle pet and to upgrade Smite, you need to farm enough camps to feed it, so that it eventually evolves to give you enhanced stats. However, being able to match the pace of farming junglers early game is a bigger deal than that. For example, in Season 12, let's say you were Lee Sin versus Karthus. As a ganking jungler, you really only had the choice of doing a fast 3 or 4 camp clear into a gank. But as you all know, sometimes that wasn't possible. The lane you're pathing to was pushing, or they died early, the opponent warded, or there's just no gank opportunity. So what now? Well, the enemy Karthus just full cleared, and then double scuttled you because they were ahead in levels. And that was the main issue of playing a ganking versus a farm jungle. You can't match their full clear, so you had to either get a gank off before they full cleared, or you had to invade them. But both of these plays were very team reliant, so oftentimes, through no fault of your own, you just fell behind to someone autopilot full clearing. This is precisely why gank junglers with mediocre clear speed will be way more viable now. For example, take a look at this Warwick. He was doing a quick route to red buff because he expected both his top and mid lane matchups to be volatile enough to where he'd likely find a gank. However, both his teammates are heavily pushed into their opponents and there's no gank opportunity to be found. Normally, this would suck for Warwick because he used to be awful at doing either Krugs or Raptors early, but thanks to jungle pets, he's able to adapt his route and not get screwed over by these random circumstances. So what this means is simple. Champions like Lee Sin, Elise, Warwick, Jarvan, Rek'Sai, Xin Zhao, etc. were all a bit weak in terms of solo queue viability before. But now, thanks to these changes, they should feel significantly less frustrating to play and give you more ways of carrying as a jungle main. Moving on to the final new way of winning, let's talk about making use of all of the new ways of communicating Riot has added for Season 13. Whether League should have voice chat is one of the most controversial topics for this game. Regardless of which side of the argument you fall under, you'll definitely be happy with how much better communication with your team will be this season. For starters, there's the upgraded ping wheel, allowing you to state your intentions a lot clearer than before. All the old pings are still there, but you can now tell your teammates to do stuff like baiting, hold freezes, to push waves, and to all in. This will make it so much easier to convey your thoughts and what you want to happen, rather than standard pings, which were so vague it would often just confuse your teammates. The second new tool is objective voting. Now, we were initially hyped about this since it lets you know how many of your teammates want to contest Dragon and how many don't. However, from our testing so far, it seems many players don't really make use of the option. Most of the time, no one is really voting. It may be because the pop-up for the vote is hard to miss, so many players just don't notice it. This may change in time, but it'll probably be this way on release. Not only that, but you can't really see who's voting, which doesn't let you immediately know which teammate has your back or not during an objective. That being said, when people do vote, you're going to want to remember to follow this principle. Even if you know an objective call is good, if your teammates vote no on it, then it's probably best to not follow through with it. A good call with bad execution is going to turn into a disaster most of the time. On the flip side, if you know a decision is horrible but all other 4 members of your team want to go for it, then you'll likely want to follow. Bad decisions with committed execution can often turn into good plays, so just keep that in mind when your teammates actually bother to use the function. Finally, the last new communication tool we're going to cover is definitely the most important one, which is the new ward ping feature. First, you're going to want to get a comfortable keybind for this vision ping if you don't already have one. The change is that whenever you see your opponent's place a ward, you can now use this ping to put a little timer over where it went down. Now your team will permanently know that there's vision here and how much longer it'll stay up. This is huge for making your teammates play better. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone use the warded ping? You're like, okay, cool, there's wards there. But then a minute later, you're like, where are all the wards again? Exactly. Remembering every single bit of information that you're given in this game is hard. It's basically the same reason why people time summoner spells. After a team fight, you'll very quickly forget who used what and when, so a visible reminder that you write down is really nice. In the same way, if you're good at pinging every time you see a ward go down, you're going to make both you and your teammates perform a lot better for very little effort. For example, as Pyke was roaming, he got a reminder of the previous ward he saw placed here due to his ping, so he now knows to W through this area to remain undetected. Or after this chaotic fight, because Senna had pinged this area, she remembers exactly where all the enemy vision was and was able to clear it all properly to establish vision control for her team. Simply put, warded pings are OP, and will drastically increase your win rate if you help your teammates and yourself out with tons of valuable info. Alright guys, that's going to be a wrap on these 5 new ways that you should be using to carry in Season 13. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we will catch you next time. See ya!